Picture a 23-year-old waiter from Manila, hustling trays and chasing dreams, who stumbles into a chance most would die to have, marrying a 68-year-old American millionaire. A young guy and a woman old enough to be his grandma. Sounds too good to be true, right? Juno thought he'd hit the jackpot, swapping his old life for a mysterious promise. But shadows lurk behind every prize. Click subscribe for more twists that'll keep you guessing. And hang on. Juno's tale is about to take a turn you won't expect. The humid Manila night pressed down on Juno as he adjusted his black bow tie in the cramped staff room of La Perla, a 5-star restaurant nestled in the heart of Makati's glittering business district. At 24, Juno was a third-year business administration student by day and a waiter by night, juggling textbooks and trays to keep his life from falling apart. The restaurant's chandeliers sparkled above polished marble floors, a world of luxury that felt miles away from his own reality. A modest apartment in Quezon City where the paint peeled and the bills piled up. Juno wasn't poor. Not exactly. His family hovered on the edge of the middle class, a fragile balance that teetered with every hospital visit for his mother, Elena. She'd been battling kidney disease for years, her frail frame a constant reminder of the medical costs draining their savings. His father, Rolando, was no help. A compulsive gambler who spent more time at the cockfighting ring than at home, racking up debts he swore he'd pay off next time. And Juno hated him for it. But he couldn't abandon his mom. She was the one who'd taught him to dream big, even if those dreams felt out of reach. Wiping sweat from his brow, Juno glanced at the clock. 8:00 p.m. His shift had just started, and the dining room buzzed with wealthy patrons. Expats in tailored suits, local tycoons with gold watches, and tourists snapping photos of their foie gras. He'd landed this job through a friend, a rare stroke of luck in a city where connections mattered more than grades. The pay was decent, enough to cover his tuition and chip away at his mom's dialysis bills. But it wasn't enough to change his life. Juno wanted more. He dreamed of skyscrapers, a corner office, a bank account with more zeros than he could count. But at 5'7" with a second-hand uniform and no rich uncle to pull strings, that future seemed like a fantasy. "Juno, table 12 needs water," barked the head waiter, snapping him out of his thoughts. He grabbed a pitcher and wove through the tables, flashing the polite smile he'd perfected over months. As he poured, he caught snippets of conversation. Stock market tips, vacation plans to Boracay, deals worth millions. It stung, knowing he was on the outside looking in. One day, he told himself, one day, he'd be the one sitting there, not serving. Back in his corner of the restaurant, Juno's mind drifted to Lena. She'd been his girlfriend since high school, 8 years of stolen kisses and late-night study sessions. Now a tech intern at a startup in Bonifacio Global City, Lena was his rock, steady, kind, and fiercely loyal. She didn't care about his family's mess or his big talk about getting rich. "We'll build something together," she'd say, her dark eyes warm with trust. But lately, Juno wondered if together would ever be enough. Lena was happy with slow and steady. He craved fast and flashy. As he cleared a table, his phone buzzed in his pocket. A text from his mom. "Need meds soon. Don't worry, Anak. Love you." His chest tightened. The pharmacy bill was overdue again, and his dad had borrowed his last paycheck for a sure bet that, of course, went bust. Juno clenched his jaw, shoving the phone back. He couldn't keep living like this, scraping by, watching his mom fade, tethered to a father who dragged them down. There had to be a way out, a shortcut to the life he deserved. Little did he know that night at La Perla would set him on a path he couldn't turn back from. A path that would test his dreams, his loyalties, and the man he thought he could be. The dining room of La Perla hummed with the clink of wine glasses and the low murmur of conversation as Juno balanced a tray of empty plates on his way to the kitchen. It was nearing 10 o'clock p.m., and the Friday night crowd was in full swing. Businessmen sealing deals over steak, couples celebrating anniversaries with champagne. Juno's feet ached in his worn-out dress shoes, but he kept moving, his mind half on his next table and half on the text from his mom still burning a hole in his pocket. As he passed table 8, a striking older woman caught his eye. She sat across from a balding man in a pinstripe suit, her silver hair swept into an elegant updo, her navy blazer crisp against the white tablecloth. She looked American, tall, poised, with a commanding presence that made the room feel smaller. Her companion was droning on about profit margins, but she seemed distracted, her sharp blue eyes scanning the restaurant. Juno didn't linger. He had work to do. 20 minutes later, as he cleared a nearby table, he noticed the woman, Margaret Maggie Reynolds, though he didn't know her name yet, stand to leave. She slipped a sleek leather purse over her shoulder, shook hands with her companion, and headed for the exit, her heels clicking against the marble floor. Juno turned back to his task, wiping crumbs into a napkin, when something glinted under her chair. A small black wallet, barely visible against the dark carpet. He crouched down, snagging it with his fingertips. It was soft leather, expensive, with a faint monogram, M.R. Inside, he glimpsed a thick stack of pesos, a few US dollars, and a gold credit card. His heart skipped. This wasn't some tourist's loose change. This was serious money. For a split second, the thought flashed through his mind. Keep it. No one would know. But his mom's voice echoed in his head. Honesty, anak, even when it's hard. And he shook it off. Besides, the restaurant had cameras. Madam! Juno called, bolting toward the door. The humid night air hit him as he stepped outside, scanning the valet area. There she was, about to climb into a black SUV, the driver holding the door. Madam, wait! He jogged over, his uniform shirt clinging to his back from the drizzle that had started to fall. She turned, one eyebrow arched in surprise. You dropped this, he said, breathless, holding out the wallet. Rain streaked his face, but he managed a sheepish grin. Found it under your chair. Maggie took the wallet, her expression softening as she flipped it open to check inside. Everything was there. Cash, cards, even a folded photo of a younger her with a man and a little girl, creased from time. She looked up at Juno, studying him. Soaked, earnest, a kid in a waiter's vest who'd run into the rain for a stranger. Thank you, she said, her voice low and steady, tinged with an American accent. Most people wouldn't bother. Juno shrugged, brushing wet hair from his eyes. It's no trouble, ma'am, just doing my job. She tilted her head, a faint smile tugging at her lips. What's your name? Juno, ma'am, Juno Santos. Well, Juno Santos. You've got a good heart. She reached into the wallet, pulled out a crisp 1,000 peso note, more than he made in a night, and pressed it into his hand. For your trouble. His eyes widened. Oh no, I can't. Take it! She cut in, firm but not unkind. I insist. Before he could argue, she slid into the SUV, the door shutting with a soft thud. The car pulled away, taillights fading into the rainy haze. Back inside, Juno tucked the bill into his pocket, his mind buzzing. 1,000 pesos wasn't a fortune, but it could cover his mom's meds for a week. He didn't know who the woman was. Margaret Reynolds, a powerhouse restaurateur from Los Angeles, in Manila, to launch her latest venture. But she'd left an impression, and unbeknownst to him, he'd left one on her too. The next night, when Juno clocked in, the manager pulled him aside. Some American lady called about you, asked your schedule, said you helped her out last night. Juno frowned, confused. She didn't leave a name, but she sounded important. Be on your toes, kid. Juno nodded, a mix of curiosity and unease settling in his gut. He had no idea that this chance encounter, returning a lost wallet in the rain, would soon unravel the life he'd known, pulling him into a world of wealth, temptation, and consequences he couldn't yet imagine. The next few weeks at La Perla felt different for Juno. Margaret Reynolds, Maggie, as she'd introduced herself, started showing up more often, always alone now, sipping a glass of red wine at a corner table. She'd wave Juno over with a casual flick of her wrist, asking about his day, his studies, his dreams. Her questions were sharp but warm, like she was peeling back layers to see what he was made of. "You're too smart to be just a waiter," she'd say, her blue eyes glinting under the chandelier light. "What do you really want out of life?" Juno didn't know how to answer at first. He'd mumble something about making it big, and she'd nod, like she understood more than he was saying. One night, after his shift, she waited outside in the drizzle, leaning against her SUV. "Join me for a coffee," she said. Not a request, but not quite an order either. Against his better judgment, he climbed in. Over lattes at a quiet cafe nearby, Maggie laid it out. "I'm opening a new restaurant chain here in Manila, part of my business back in the States. I'm 68, Juno, no kids, no husband anymore. I need someone I can trust, someone young and hungry." She paused, letting the words sink in. "Marry me. On paper, nothing more. In return, you get a green card to the US, a life of comfort, and when I'm gone, everything I own, millions, properties, the works, it's yours." Juno nearly dropped his cup. "Marry you?" he sputtered, half laughing. "You're joking, right? You're old enough to be my Lola." Maggie didn't flinch at her. "I'm serious. I don't need love or grandkids. I need a partner, someone to carry on what I've built. You're honest, quick on your feet. I saw that when you ran out in the rain for my wallet. Think about it." He did. All the way home, her words echoed in his head. Green card, millions, a new life. It was insane, but it was everything he'd ever wanted handed to him on a silver platter. No more scraping by. No more watching his mom waste away because they couldn't afford better care. But then there was Lena. 8 years of her quiet strength. Her hand in his through every late-night fight with his dad. Every hospital scare with his mom. Could he throw that away? At home, the air was thick with tension. His mom, Elena, lay on the couch, her breathing shallow, a pile of unpaid bills stacked on the coffee table. The dialysis was barely keeping her alive, and the doctor had warned they'd need a transplant soon. Hundreds of thousands of pesos they didn't have. His dad, Rolando, stumbled in late, reeking of cheap beer and tobacco. When Juno told him about Maggie, leaving out the marriage part, just mentioning a rich American interested in him, Rolando's bloodshot eyes lit up. "You hit the jackpot, anak! Don't mess this up over that girl! Lena's got nothing. Dump her and grab this chance," Juno snapped. "She's not nothing! She's been there for me when you were out losing our money!" Rolando sneered, jabbing a finger at him. "You think I'm the bad guy? Look at your mom. She's dying because we're broke. You want to save her? Stop playing noble and take the rich lady's deal. Be a man for once." The words cut deep. That night, Juno sat by his mom's side, her frail hand in his. "Don't listen to him, Juno," she whispered, her voice weak. "Money's not everything. Live right, anak." But as he watched her struggle to breathe, guilt gnawed at him. What good was right if it couldn't save her? Lena noticed the change in him. Over dinner at their usual tap silog joint, she reached for his hand. "You're distracted. What's going on?" He couldn't meet her eyes. Maggie's offer spun in his mind. Freedom, wealth, a way out. Lena was his past. Maggie was his future. I need to focus on my family," he lied. "Maybe we should take a break." Her face crumpled. A break? After 8 years? She pulled her hand back, tears welling. "This isn't about your family. It's something else." Tell me the truth." He couldn't. The truth was too ugly. He was trading her for a stranger's fortune. "I'm sorry, Lena," he muttered, standing. "I need space." She didn't chase him. As he walked away, he heard her sob, a sound that stabbed at his chest. Back home, he called Maggie. "I'm in," he said, voice flat. "You'll pay for my mom's treatment too, right?" Maggie's reply was cool, confident. "Everything you need, Juno. We'll sign the papers tomorrow." He hung up, staring at the cracked ceiling. His mom's soft snores filled the room. His dad's curses echoed from the street below. He'd done it. Cut Lena loose. Sold his soul for a shot at the top. It felt like victory, but it tasted bitter. What he didn't know was how steep the price would climb, and how far he'd fall before it was over. The marriage was sealed in a Manila law office, a cold exchange of signatures that felt more like a contract than a celebration. Maggie moved fast. Within days, she'd funded Elena's kidney transplant, erasing the family's crushing medical debt. Juno's mom sobbed with gratitude, calling him her savior, while his dad, Rolando, strutted around the neighborhood, boasting about my boy's big break. Big. Juno nodded through it all, but the hollow ache of losing Lena gnawed at him, a price he buried under the promise of a better life. A month later, he touched down in Los Angeles, stepping into Maggie's Hollywood Hills mansion, a world of marble floors, panoramic views, and a pool that glowed like a jewel at night. "This is your home now," Maggie said, her voice flat. "Prove you belong here." She thrust him into a junior manager role at Reynolds Dining Group, her upscale restaurant chain. "I want to see what you've got," she added, her stare sharp, testing. Juno dove in. He swapped his waiter's vest for sleek suits, mastered schedules and budgets, won over clients with his quick grin. The money was a rush, enough to wire home and still splurge on things he'd never dared before. For a moment, he felt invincible, like he'd outsmarted fate. Maggie watched, her approval silent but palpable, and he let himself think he'd cracked the code to the top. But the nights told a different story. After hours, Maggie's voice would crackle through the intercom, summoning him to her room. The space reeked of lavender and wealth, silk sheets, flickering lamps casting shadows on her gaunt face. She'd sit there, frail in her satin robe, her trembling hands reaching for him with a clingy need that turned his stomach. Her touch was cold, possessive, a stark clash of her age against his youth. Juno would lie rigid, eyes locked on the chandelier above, her raspy breaths a reminder of the decades separating them. It wasn't closeness. It was a duty, a deal he stomached for her millions. "She's a relic," he'd think, jaw tight. "She'll be gone soon, and I'll be free." The disgust lingered. Her sagging skin and faded beauty, a weight he couldn't shake. Then the cracks widened. At a company event, Juno met Victor Castillo, a slick supplier with a vendetta against Maggie, who'd outmaneuvered him in a deal years back. Victor sidled up, all charm and whiskey. "You're her pet project, huh? She's ancient. Why play her game when you could run your own?" He dangled temptation. Fudge the books, skim profits, build a stash. "She's too slow to notice," he grinned. Juno bit, starting small, tweaking invoices, pocketing cash. Victor fueled the fire, and soon Juno was splashing money at clubs, flaunting a leased Porsche online with tags like, "Made it." Old friends texted, "You're not the same?" And he'd smirk. Same? He was better. Maggie's silence grew ominous. She'd study him over dinner, him in flashy chains, her in her blazer, her eyes like ice. He didn't care. She was a means to an end, nothing more. Then came Stella. He spotted her at a West Hollywood club, a vision in red, 20. bold, her curves catching every light. She poured shots with a wink, and after a blur of drinks, they stumbled into a hotel room. The air was electric, her perfume sharp and sweet as she pulled him close, her warm hands sliding over him with a hunger that lit him up. She laughed against his neck, her touch alive, vibrant, a world away from Maggie's clammy grip. This is it, Juno thought, lost in her heat. This is paradise. None of that wrinkled mess, that old hag's faded face. Stella was youth, fire, everything he craved. Not the cold bargain he endured at home. It became his escape. Nights with Stella, lies to Maggie about business. He'd whisper promises in the dark. When she's gone, we'll have it all. Money, freedom, you and me. Stella would grin, egging him on, and he'd believe it. Back at the mansion, he'd breeze past Maggie's office, tossing her a smug, "Good night," too high on his own rise to notice her watching. The Juno who'd chased a wallet through rain was gone, replaced by a man drowning in greed, blind to the trap closing around him. He thought he'd won the game. He hadn't even seen the board. Juno's new life glittered like the LA skyline. Fast cars, late nights, and Stella's laughter drowning out any flicker of guilt. He'd convinced himself he was untouchable, a king in waiting, biding his time, until Maggie's fortune fell into his lap. Maggie, meanwhile, stayed a shadow in the mansion, quiet, distant, her days spent in her office behind closed doors. Juno barely noticed. To him, she was a fading relic, a stepping stone he'd outgrow soon enough. He couldn't have been more wrong. Maggie Reynolds hadn't built an empire by being naive. She'd chosen Juno for a reason. His honesty that rainy night in Manila, his boyish charm, his hunger. At 68, with no family left, she'd seen him as a gamble, a young man she could mold, maybe even trust, to carry her legacy. She hadn't rushed to put him in her will. She'd wanted to test him first, to see if that spark of decency held up under pressure. So she watched, closely, and what she saw wasn't the loyal partner she'd hoped for, but a snake coiled in her own house. It started with whispers. Her CFO mentioned discrepancies in the books, small at first, then glaring. A private investigator hired on a hunch tailed Juno to his business trips, snapping photos of him with Stella, their arms tangled in dimly lit clubs. Bank records showed cash siphoned to an offshore account, traced back to Victor Castillo's shady deals. Maggie pieced it together. Juno wasn't just cheating on her with another woman. He was stealing from her, plotting with her enemy, betting on her death to cash out. The betrayal stung, but it didn't break her. It fueled her. She didn't confront him. Not yet. Maggie was a strategist, not a reactor. She played the fool, smiling thinly at his excuses, letting him strut around the mansion like he owned it. Behind the scenes, she moved chess pieces. She met with her lawyers, rewriting her will to leave everything, millions, properties, her company, to a children's charity she'd quietly supported for years. Juno's name? Erased. Then she crafted her trap. She handed him a stack of investment papers to sign, her voice casual. Just some expansion plans. You're my husband. Your input matters. The documents were a maze of fine print, lacing him into a web of fake loans and shell companies, debts that would crush him when the time came. Even as she plotted, Maggie kept him close. She'd call him to her room some nights, her frail hands claiming him with that same cold grip, her eyes glinting with something he couldn't read. Juno endured it, smirking inwardly. She's clueless. I'm still in control. He didn't know she was using him now, turning his greed into her weapon, savoring the irony of his obliviousness. She'd lost her illusions about him, but she'd wring every ounce of usefulness from him before the fall. The reckoning came on a crisp LA evening. Maggie summoned Juno to her office, the city lights sprawling beyond the glass wall. He sauntered in, reeking of cologne and arrogance, expecting another pointless chat. She slid a folder across the desk. Photos of him with Stella, bank statements, emails with Victor. "Care to explain?" she asked, her voice like steel wrapped in silk. Juno froze, his smirk fading. What is this?" he stammered, flipping through the evidence, his hands shaking. Maggie leaned back, calm as a storm's eye. "This is you, Juno, stealing from me, laughing behind my back, sleeping around while you wait for me to die. Did you think I was that blind? That old?" He scrambled. "No, it's not what it looks like. Victor set me up. I didn't mean—" She cut him off with a laugh, sharp and bitter. "Don't insult me. I gave you a chance, a life most people only dream of. You helped me once, back in Manila, and I thought that boy had a spine. But you're just a leech, like your father." The mention of Rolando hit like a slap. "You don't know me," he spat, voice rising. "I did this for my family, for my mom." Maggie's eyes narrowed. "You did this for yourself, and now you'll pay for it." She tapped the signed investment papers. "Those? They tie you to debts you'll never climb out of. Millions, all in your name. The police have the rest. Your little scheme with Victor's on their desk now." Juno's world tilted. "You can't do this! I'm your husband!" he shouted, lunging for the folder. She didn't flinch. "On paper, maybe. In reality, you're nothing to me. Enjoy your paradise, Juno. It's about to burn." He stumbled out, head spinning, the folder clutched uselessly in his hands. Maggie stayed seated, staring at the city below, a faint smile curling her lips. She'd trusted him once, and he'd spat on it. Now she'd turn his greed into his cage, a masterpiece of revenge still unfolding. For Juno, the worst was yet to come. Juno's world unraveled faster than he could run. The morning after Maggie's confrontation, the mansion swarmed with police, badges flashing, voices barking orders. They hauled him out in cuffs, his designer shirt wrinkled, his bravado gone. Maggie stood on the balcony, arms crossed, watching with the calm of a general who'd already won the war. The evidence was airtight. Bank records, forged invoices, Victor's testimony after he'd cut a deal to save himself. Juno's name was plastered across every document Maggie had tricked him into signing. Millions in fake loans tied to shell companies, all crashing down on him like a tidal wave. The legal hammer fell hard. Immigration revoked his green card. His marriage to Maggie, deemed a sham by her lawyers, didn't hold up. The U.S. deported him within weeks, dumping him back in Manila with nothing but a duffel bag and a rap sheet. Then came the civil suit. Maggie's team sued him for the debts he'd unknowingly signed into, a staggering $5 million in fabricated losses. His assets, the Porsche, the offshore account, were seized, liquidated to a fraction of what he owed. Creditors hounded him, their calls a relentless buzz in his ear. Back in Quezon City, the fallout was brutal. His mom, Elena, now recovering from her transplant, turned away when he showed up at the door. "You sold your soul, Juno," she said, her voice trembling with disappointment. "I didn't raise you for this." His dad, Rolando, didn't even stick around. Once the money dried up, he vanished, chasing his next gambling fix. Juno was alone, a pariah in the neighborhood where kids once looked up to him. Whispers followed him. "The guy who married the rich American? Yeah, she chewed him up and spat him out." Desperate, he tracked down Lena. She'd moved on, thriving as a software developer at her tech firm, her name on a startup app making waves. He found her at a cafe, her hair shorter, her eyes harder. "Lena, I messed up," he begged, voice cracking. "I need you. I've got nothing left." She set her coffee down, unflinching. "You had me for 8 years, Juno. You chose money over us. Live with it." She walked away, leaving him slumped in the chair, the weight of his choices crushing him. Maggie's final blow came in a letter, delivered to the rundown boarding house, where Juno now scraped by. Inside was a single line in her neat script. "You returned my wallet once, but you stole my trust. Enjoy the debt. It's your inheritance." Tucked with it was a news clipping. Reynolds' dining group donates $50 million to children's charity. She'd funneled her fortune to the cause, leaving him with less than nothing, a master stroke of revenge that turned his greed into his ruin. The irony burned. He had gambled on her death for wealth, and she'd outlived his dreams, thriving while he sank. Juno hit rock bottom. He took a job hauling crates at a warehouse, his hands blistered, his back bent under loads heavier than his pride. The Porsche was a memory. Now he rode a rattling jeepney to work, the Manila heat soaking through his faded shirt. Nights were sleepless, haunted by Stella's laugh, Lena's tears, Maggie's cold stare. He'd traded everything, love, family, dignity, for a mirage, and the price was a life stripped bare. Yet in that wreckage, a flicker emerged. One day, unloading boxes, he overheard a coworker talk about a free coding class, Lena's old dream for him. He signed up, showing up with a borrowed notebook, his hands shaking as he typed his first line. It wasn't redemption, not yet. Just a step, a chance to claw back some shred of who he'd been before greed swallowed him whole. Maggie's triumph was absolute. From L.A., she sipped wine by her pool, her empire secure, her legacy untarnished. She'd turned Juno's betrayal into a lesson etched in his bones. Wealth can't buy worth, and trust, once broken, cuts deeper than any blade. For Juno, the scars were his story now, a cautionary tale whispered in Manila streets, a testament to the cost of chasing shadows over substance. And there you have it, Juno's rise and fall, a tale of greed that burned brighter than the LA sun and crashed harder than a Manila monsoon. Maggie's revenge wasn't just a win. It was a masterpiece that left him with nothing but regrets. What do you think? Did Juno deserve his fate? Or did Maggie go too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I read everyone, and I'd love to hear your take. If this story hit you hard, give it a like, share it with a friend, and stick around for more twists you won't see coming. See you in the next one.